What is that one fact you know that always makes people respond, and why the frick do you know that? An adult's collarbone will break with 8 pounds of perpendicular force. A child's breaks at 12 pounds. The first 1080p video on YouTube was the Muppets singing Bohemian Rhapsody. It exists. And I watched it, start to finish. I'm not sure if that helped make my life complete or not, but it's done. A nursing sperm whale's milk comes out in the consistency of cottage cheese, so the calf can eat it in the water. I read it as a nursing whale's sperm milk. Frick me. I was so amazed that whales were nutting food for their kids. And massively disgusted, of course. The best way to clean up blood without leaving a smell is salt. Just put salt and scrub. The salt helps the blood clump into pieces, making it easier to clean too. When it's still fresh, pour hydrogen peroxide on it, then blot immediately. Even if it isn't fresh, this works. Hands down best way to get it out. Also prevents it from showing up in a luminol test. That's the real important factor. That you should always use 2 hands to pick up a severed human head. Human heads weigh about as much as a standard size bowling ball, but unlike bowling balls, they are not perfectly spherical. Therefore, gravity is not evenly distributed across the entire head, so they have a tendency to topple out of your hand if you try to hold them with just one. And nobody wants to be the person who drops a severed head. That's true, but you could probably grasp the head by the hair and hold it that way. What if someone killed Mr. Clean? Put 2 fingers in the nostrils and the thumb in the mouth, like a bowling ball. That's a great way to get bit by a dead guy. Sigurd died that way. Poor bastard. Boy, example of thread title right there. Tarantulas taste like shrimp. I told this once to a random stranger because they brought up how they didn't like shrimp. They immediately hounded me about how I knew this. No, I never ate a tarantula. I read a Reddit comment that said it once, then regurgitated it as fact, and they challenged me, and I looked like a ducking dweeb. Now I know why. It's cause they're both arthropods. You hear me, random Uber passenger I picked up 2 months ago? Arthropods? Wood lice, aka roly-polies, are crustaceans like lobsters, but don't taste like lobster. Instead they taste like strong urine. Edit. To everyone asking, I learned this by reading about wood lice, not by experience. Sweet. I can't wait to tell people without knowing why. Thank you. Owls have tubular-shaped eyes, rather than spherical ones. This makes it difficult to move the eyes in their sockets, but is counteracted by the ability to rotate their heads 270 degrees in either direction. If you move the feathers out of the way of their ear holes, you can see the back of those eye tubes. What the frick? Opossums eat ticks like we eat potato chips. They'll hoover up 5,000 ticks a week and never get Lyme disease themselves. And they don't get rabies. And are North America's only marsupial. Because their body contains LTNF, lethal toxin neutralizing factor, they're also immune to the effects of multiple venomous snake bites, ricin poisoning, bees, botulinum, etc. Edit. Since this comment is getting more popular, I ask you to read up more about opossums. Misinformation breeds ignorance. It is rare for an opossum to have rabies. I'm not saying opossums can't carry rabies, but they are 8 times less likely than wild dogs to carry rabies. They are an animal who can bite you, especially if they have young, and can carry some diseases, so don't think you can pick one up and give it a hug. But if one's living in your garage and isn't hurting anyone, don't let your first instinct be to kill it. Opossums are apparently badass. In ancient Babylon, people would build their most valuable possessions, fine wine, among others, into the walls of their basement, which in the region was usually a naturally occurring cave, so when the taxman came, he couldn't see it to count it. The heart, if perfused through the aorta with an appropriate solution, will beat for hours outside of the body. And they have invented some kind of heart-esque arrangement to allow this to happen, while they transport the heart to the transplant hospital. I worked on that project. It's really cool. They use an ECMO circuit to oxygenate blood as it goes into the aorta. Perfusing backwards through the aorta pushes the blood through the coronaries, and it drains out the RV to be reused in the circuit. It's not used in people yet, but they've had up to 72 hours with the heart beating in a box outside an animal. They do have a really cool machine that does something similar for lungs, and can be used to rescue lungs from DCD patients and recondition them for transplant. Bee testicles explode when they finish, and they finish living with a bang. Can bees do anything without dying afterward? Bee exists. Dies. On the 762nd digit of pi, there are 6 nines in a row. Yeah, the Feynman point. Rat poison is actually an anticoagulant mixed with stuff like fiberglass. Because rats are always scraping and squeezing into stuff, they build up these minor injuries. The anticoagulant stops their blood from clotting properly, and they internally hemorrhage to death. Since a human being is a lot bigger than a rat, rat poison is much less effective on us. It's so much less effective, they have turned it into an anticoagulant that just so happens to be one of the most popular medications, commonly prescribed as Coumadin, Jantoven and warfarin. Minus the fiberglass, probably. That's why I always order mine with extra fiberglass. Wombats have cube poop. Poop, cube. Half of all bank robberies take place on a Friday. I'm guessing this has something to do with paychecks being issued on Fridays? Do the banks prepare a bigger supply of cash for those who need it immediately? I used to work at a bank and their cash deliveries were on a Thursday, but it was more getting rid of money. The local businesses that accept cash would make deposits regularly, mostly $20 bills, whereas it's rare for people to cash their paychecks if they have a bank account or withdraw cash at all. The ATM takes care of most cash withdrawals, and cash is just becoming less and less useful. That Disney is the biggest importer of explosives in the world. Edit. This commercially they don't beat out the US Department of Defense. It's the fireworks. They also have to pay a fine every day when they have the fireworks show in California. Edit. I was thinking of California. They also have to pay a fine every day. Every day. That is some serious frick you money. Big Mouse has plenty of bribe money. You need to lose 2,000 milliliters, 40% of blood to actually die from blood loss. You need to lose more than that to actually die, but 40% is when your body loses the ability to control blood pressure, which makes death very likely. A Russian woman had a shit ton of triplets, twins, and quadruplets, with the same man totaling up to 69 children. As a woman, frick that. You can get prescription methamphetamine in the US. Trade named as Arxen. Used for extreme ADHD or extreme obesity. Cocaine is commonly used on small children and pediatric trauma centers, since cocaine is an anesthetic and a vasoconstrictor. It is applied topically to control pain and bleeding in children that are too young to handle morphine. There's only one pharmacy in America that is allowed to produce cocaine, and they also make the coca extract for Coca-Cola. If you want to burn down a building, put potato chips in a toaster with a trail leading from the toaster to other highly flammable things. The potato chips leave no residue, and the toaster will pop back up after the chips catch fire, so there's no way to find the start of the fire. Well, I guess if I ever need to commit insurance fraud, you got my back. Ryan started the fire. A 2008 Prius can float, at least for short distances. Car was not damaged in any way. My dumbass thought you meant in the air, not the water. If you're a woman revolted by the smell of your guy's gym bag, but find yourself sometimes aroused by it, that's when you're ovulating. Just learned a new term for scrotum. The fact that mushrooms are more genetically related to humans than they are to trees. Ancient Egyptians used to shave off their eyebrows to mourn the death of their cats. Terminal velocity of an ant is around 3.9 miles per hour. They can't be harmed by falling because they can't fall fast enough to hurt themselves. For the same fall distance, a mouse walks away, a human breaks every bone, and a horse splashes. Sorry, but what does a horse splashes mean? It hits the ground so hard it explodes. Like a hefty bag filled with vegetable soup. There it is. All female hyenas are basically Futa dominatrixes, and they give birth through their lady dicks. Ouchies. Due to absurd testosterone levels, females have been known to have pseudopenises up to 9 inches long. Mount Kilimanjaro is the tallest mountain with cell service. That we have taste buds on our testicles. I just tried this and I don't taste anything. It's gotta be something with a really strong flavor. Try some hot sauce.
I'm Sean Evans and you're watching Hot Ones. It's the show with hot questions and even hotter
testicles.